So hello, good afternoon. My name is Chuck Ingram. I am honored today to be joined by one of my favorite business authors, Robbie Kellman Baxter. She's a consultant and a speaker who's been providing strategic advice to Silicon Valley companies. She founded a company called Peninsula Strategies. She's been in CNN, Consumer Reports, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. She's got two books, count them two, The Membership Economy and The Forever Transaction. Both have been extremely influential to me in my journey as both a corporate guy and an entrepreneur. And here's my other one. This one's just digital for me so far.
I love it.
But I have them both. Robbie, welcome to the SMB Summit.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's funny, when I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you, I had to separate like that. This is on my main quick handy bookshelf here, not the other bookshelf over there. And I've learned quite a bit about this from how this could help people. So maybe we have to go back just a little bit. So maybe we could start with, what's a forever transaction and what was the driver behind writing this new book?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the forever transaction in my first book, The Membership Economy, and I described it as that moment when a customer takes off their consumer hat and puts on their member hat and stops looking for alternatives because they've decided that your organization is going to be the one to solve their problem for the long term.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know that I started a firm, and I've noticed that in a project model, you're kind of across the table. And in a member model, or at least we're trying to have a member model, it's on the same side of the table a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What you're trying to do is align your goals as an organization as closely as possible with the long-term goals of the people you serve. And that way you're both incented to take care of each other for the long term. You by solving their problem on an ongoing basis, and them by providing predictable recurring revenue to you so that you can make better decisions, manage your cash flow, pay your people, and so on.
Makes good sense. So lots of things going on right now, lots of changes in the economy over the last few years, lots of external events happening right now that are some scary. Hope we'll get past them all. The forever transaction, the whole subscription economy, that's kind of been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, since trade guilds in the 12th century and organized religion and tithing, I mean, we as human beings, we want to belong, we want to be recognized for our contributions and our achievements, and we want to have security. This is what, Abraham Maslow talked about in his hierarchy of needs. And companies have always wanted, recurring revenues like the holy grail for businesses. So this is not a new idea, this idea of membership. What's new is that in the last 10 or 15 years or so, technology has extended the infrastructure that allows us to build trusted relationships with our customers. And that's really what is enabling this explosion in subscription models that we're seeing across virtually every industry right now.
So it's the technology in a lot of ways that's accelerated it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as an example, it used to be if you wanted to distribute content, written content, articles, news, and so on, right? You had to print it. Well, first of all, you had to pay a journalist to write the story. Then you had to have some kind of facility to print it, right? Printing presses. And then you had to have a means of distributing it, like a network of, newspaper delivery people, for example. Or you had to put it in the mail and then you had to delay it by a week. Now, you and I can create content, upload it, and have millions of people look at it And all of that is free. And then if we want to have our own studios or, to create video content, we can do that at very, very low cost. And then further, there are underlying technologies that allow us to accept subscription payments in a way that is safe for both the organization and the customer that we never had before. So subscription billing and then digital community platforms are making it possible for even the smallest business owners to build out subscription models around their subject matter expertise.
Exciting times. So,
Yeah.
what does a company look like that's kind of found their forever transaction, as you talked about in the new book?
Yeah, well, there's so many different examples of virtually all sizes. So, one that I talked about in my first book is Netflix, right? Their forever promise is professionally created video content delivered with cost certainty. So in other words, no late fees, in the most efficient way possible, which 15 years ago was 3 DVDs sent in the mail. And now it's streaming, and it was content that was created by other studios, and now a lot of it is content created by Netflix. But that promise, the catalog of professionally created video content delivered with cost certainty in the most efficient way possible, has continued to be their North Star. That forever promise is, they continue to evolve how they deliver on it, but they don't change that promise. So that's one example of a big company that we all know. But smaller organizations can do it too. And it's just about shifting your focus. So for example, it's clothing manufacturers that instead of saying you can come to our store and buy a white, if I say I need to look good for work, I can go to Ann Taylor and buy a suit. But as a speaker and somebody who does a lot of filming, I want to have a different suit every time. So that doesn't really solve my problem perfectly. So now they have a subscription service where they send me clothes that I can wear and then return and get a new one, just like Netflix, but for clothing. And that aligns with my mission of what I'm trying to accomplish. So looking at organizations that are evolving the way they package their value to be more aligned with certain key customer segments is really what's going on right now in terms of building forever transactions.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so interesting how companies like Netflix have, they produce so much content. It's like each movie used to be a giant bet, but for Netflix, they put out a lot of content. And living in Georgia, they film a lot of these things around. So it's like you go around this corner, they're filming something else. And
I heard you live in the Ozarks neighborhood of Atlanta.
I do. I filmed the Ozarks right behind my house. And it's funny, I live in a regular neighborhood, and so it's pretty cool. The Blue Cat Lodge is around the corner. That's very true. So on the flip side of that, it seems like some companies have sort of struggled with subscription models. Any thoughts on that and why?
Yeah, and that's actually why I wrote the second book. So, Membership Economy, I wrote 5 years. Well, actually, I wrote it 6 years ago, got published 5 years ago. And I wrote that to explain that these principles could work for almost any kind of company because people didn't see what I was seeing and I wanted them to see it. So it was like my £1 business card. But 5 years later, every company is trying to build a forever transaction with their customers and a lot of them are failing. So this book is really full of, what to do and what not to do wherever you are on your journey to forever. So, you asked for what are some things that they're doing wrong. And I'm not going to name names because that's mean, but here's some of the things. Giving away too much or too little for free. So not thinking strategically about the role of free, whether that's a free trial, a taste of the most delicious benefits you have, or freemium, which is an ongoing benefit, something that members get for free forever. What is the return on investment of that? Many companies haven't thought that through. Another thing that companies do is they take whatever products and services they already have and slap a subscription price over it and call it a subscription, right? So we've seen that with SaaS companies probably for the last 10 years. Like some of, you're supposed to rebuild your enterprise software for SaaS. It's a whole new architecture, right? But a lot of companies just take that enterprise software and say, now you can pay for it on an annual basis. And it doesn't really work like that. If you really want a vibrant subscription model, you need to really think about how do you provide access and flexibility and the value that justifies paying in this new way, subscription versus for ownership.
You know, it's interesting. And the first time you and I met, we were talking about, a few years ago, we were talking about subscription models for professional services for software. And there's like one way you could look at it where it's taking this big project and stretching the way you pay for it out, and it feels like just financing.
Yep.
And then there's this other way that says, well, maybe the big project doesn't need to be so big, and maybe you just continue to add value to the client and they adopt it better, they can optimize it, and eventually they'll get more outcomes out of it. And then those clients really tended, and we tried this, and the company I started now, we try to do this, and those clients are the happiest clients that we have.
Yeah, and I love that story. It's not surprising that when you try to align the goals of the customer with your ongoing goals, nobody wants to buy software. They want to have their business operate smoothly.
Right.
So the closer, right? The closer you can get to, we're in the business of helping you run your business smoothly, the happier your customer is going to be. In fact, most of them probably don't even want to talk to you about what decisions they're making. They just want to say, make it work. And then they want to be able to call somebody if it's not working and say, make it work. Right. It's like, I mean, it's so funny, but like, I spoke last year for the Car Wash Association, the International Car Wash Association, totally different business than, professional services for technology. With the same issue, nobody wants a car wash. We want a clean car. And if somebody came up with a way that little elves, little fairies would come in the middle of the night and clean that one spot off your car, we would gladly pay a monthly subscription to have our car never get dirty in the first place. So when you flip that on its head and you're like, well, I don't have any little fairies or elves, but I could have a team that goes out in a van at night and does touch-ups for subscribing customers. Or I could have a solution where we go to the parking lot of a company that happens to be around the corner from our car wash. And while people are at work, we valet park and we take the car around the corner, wash it, and put it back in the parking lot so that when they come pick it up, it's all clean. Those are just ideas that get closer to our goal, which is I'd be happy if I never had to go to another car wash again, even if you do give me free popcorn and rides for my kids, right?
Well, you just had a really good idea. I was thinking about the car wash that I go to, and they offer a subscription, which is great. They're nice people and everything, but it's just prepaying for what I was going to probably do maybe anyway, but I'm not really getting clean car as a service.
Right. It's closer, right? It's closer.
A step. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the two things that people tell me they like about car wash subscriptions, one of them is I don't feel bad. Like if I clean my car and then, a bird makes a mess on the hood, I don't feel so bad. Like, oh, it's another $15 or $10 or whatever it is. Yeah. You can just go back. So that's one thing that people like, which is I can use it as much as I need it. Or if you wash your car and then it rains, you can go back and, fix it or whatever. But then there's the other thing that really surprised me, but is so interesting, is that a lot of people subscribe to car washes to avoid the friction of talking to the person at the car wash. That if you have your subscription and you run your card through and you just go through and you don't have to talk to anybody, that for a lot of people, that's a benefit as well. It's also one of the biggest benefits of Uber and Lyft, right? One benefit is you can get the car to show up right where you are, but the other benefit is you don't have to talk to that person. You don't have to hand cash over or give them your credit card or have that awkward moment of giving them a tip. You just get in the car, and then when you get to the place you're going, you get out of the car. Friction gone.
Very true.
We're getting worse at socializing as a result of that, but that's for a different story.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm more of an Uber talker to or the driver I think, unfortunately. So I'm curious, and is in if you're in a firm that's thinking about going to a subscription model are really becoming a forever transaction type company, there are a lot of things that you focus on there. A lot of times they're short-term measurements inside of big companies that, and the leadership might say, yeah, it'd be great to have a subscription because we get long-term, but you have to do a lot of things to make that happen. Is there any guidance that when you're implementing the membership economy, trying to get to the forever transaction that companies should think about?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's most executive teams and boards love subscriptions because recurring revenue, better valuations in the public markets, greater loyalty, all of that. But in order to earn the right to have that, you as a company need to take a longer term view of that relationship as well. And that means not, tricking the customer into paying an extra fee or selling an extra little project because it's the end of the quarter, or, any kind of thing that prioritize a short-term revenue goal over the health of the long-term relationship. And when you have businesses where salespeople are compensated quarterly, where executives might not even be in their jobs in 2 years, it's very hard to get them to take a long-term focus. And, something interesting that I've noticed is that some of the best subscription businesses and some of the best membership organizations are the ones that are owned by their operators. So family-run businesses, entrepreneurial businesses, because that owner understands that if I can keep my customers forever and I get this recurring cash flow, I'm in great shape. And what I need to do to earn that is I need to treat them in a certain way now. I'm investing in this future.
It's like you said earlier, it's a different, if there are pieces of business that are transactional, but then there are pieces of business that, when we get old, we're going to look back at more than just the numbers. We're going to look at the relationships that we have with our clients. They become our friends. We help them build, a hospital or do this or do that. And, it feels like this model helps you build more of a relationship with your client.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at its core, this is about culture, right? I mean, you have to figure out your pricing and you have to figure out your software, the structure of your products, and you have to figure out your support. But ultimately it's about how you treat your customer. Are they a stranger, an arm's length transaction, or are they an important long-term relationship? Just like any other important long-term relationship with your spouse, with your family, with your close friends, with your trusted advisors. That's really what we're trying to move to.
Interesting. That's awesome. So it's more work than it seems just to turn your existing business into a subscription. But if you can do it, there's huge payoff.
Yes.
Sometimes, and we've all seen this, you look back in the olden days, you think of these visionary leaders, Steve Jobs and folks like that. And then you move into today, a lot of the leaders are, and they probably do have good vision, but the month to month, day to day, week to week pressures on them, they tend to have to be more transactional. But
yeah,
so a lot of times you see a lot of the visionary people not be the CEO in a firm. So how can we as leaders, whether you're an entrepreneur like me or an entrepreneur inside of a big company that says, oh, wow, we really should move this way. It would drive up, our customers would love us. How do we influence our corporate leaders to move towards models like this?
Yeah. Well, so if you're the boss, as you are, Chuck, then you need to decide, is this a model that works for you? Number one, is it something that you think would best serve? Do you truly believe it's the best way to serve your clients? And do you have the stomach to really invest in something that's going to sustain you for the long term? Because there's an upfront investment required. For people that are entrepreneurs, the most important thing, what happens in a lot of organizations is the board wants to do it. The CEO says, good idea. They tap somebody kind of in middle management, like a VP level person, and say,
Mm-hmm.
you're responsible for either experimenting with and discovering or building a subscription model or membership model in this corner of the organization and then scaling it.
Mm-hmm.
They dedicate somebody. Usually it's like a VP of strategy or a general manager or somebody that has a lot of experience in the company. If you're tapped to do that, you need to make sure that your CEO is going to provide you with air cover, and that you have the same expectations. In other words, the first experiment might not work. You need to iterate. You're going to need to invest, because if you're used to getting the whole amount up front and now you're waiting on subscription revenue, it'll take a few periods before you're making more with the subscription model. So if you're asked to be that entrepreneur, make sure you have the support you need, both in terms of leadership support, in terms of the right team to help you execute, and in terms of budget and timeline, before you say yes to what could be a career maker, or could also be a career breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. The measurements have to be aligned with it. And to your point, as an entrepreneur, I know I get challenged every day with the attractive large project. And we do projects. You have to do projects, but we look at them more as an onboarding to the relationship. So it's definitely you have to stay the course. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So in terms of 2 or 3 things that a company could do in addition to what we talked about so far, what questions should they be asking themselves to see if a membership model is right for them?
Well, the first thing they should ask themselves is, who would be their best members? So in other words, who do they want to design this program around? What is the goal? What is the problem that they're trying to solve for their own organization as well with membership? So are they really trying to have a way to smooth out the really lumpy project deal flow? Or are they trying to actually say, this is going to actually be our primary source of revenue? So like Netflix, that is how they make money. Their subscription is the only way they make money. For Amazon, right? Subscription, Amazon Prime is just a way of being closer to their members so that their members buy more through them, right? And so that's a different model. If all Amazon got was the Amazon Prime fees, they would not be a successful company, right? It's almost like a loss leader. It's a marketing tool to drive engagement and loyalty. So I think anybody out there should be thinking, what do I want subscription to do for my business? Do I have the stomach for it to make that investment? And who is that best member that I'm going to serve and optimize around? What is the promise I'm making to them? What problem am I solving for them for the long term? And I think if you ask yourself those questions, you'll start to get a different way of thinking about everything you do in terms of how do you communicate to them? How do you bring them on board when you have a new customer? What's the onboarding process like? What kind of expectations are you setting? How do you support them? Do you wait until they call with a problem, or do you proactively try to make sure that they're getting value? All of those things just become, and then ultimately you might actually change the services you provide, but that's changing your product is a much more expensive and bigger investment than changing your marketing message.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A lot under the covers there.
Yeah.
Robbie, this was fantastic discussion.
Oh, good.
I hope that what folks who listen to this, I hope they get half of what I've gotten out of digging deep into this, and the one I have on my iPad is well. This can be transformational for folks. So where can they go to get more information about you and your books and engaging with you?
Yeah, well, I'm very easy to find if you Google me. But the easiest place to find everything is on my website, RobbieKellmanBaxter.com. That's my name. And you can go there. I have a bunch of downloadables that you can look at, a membership manifesto, a chapter of the book, some other goodies. Or you can go to LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of content, or Robbie Bax on Twitter or Instagram. And then, of course, anywhere books are sold, your local indie bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all carry both the Forever Transaction and the membership economy.
Awesome. Robbie, you were fantastic. I hope the SMB Summit attendees love this as much as I do. Thanks so much.
Oh, good. Me too. Thanks so much, Chuck.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.